Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and as you can tell, I have got an amazing guest speaker with me today who was at the Hear the Watchman conference, and you guys likely know him, but if you don't, he is with Skywatch TV, and you've probably seen him on there, but it is Derek Gilbert, and he is an author, and he is, you've written many things, and basically delves into a lot of things Bible prophecy wise. Can you just tell those who may not know a little bit about who you are?
Well, I think the amazing thing was that they asked me to be a speaker here at this conference, so we'll just put that out there right there. No, it was an honor to be here as part of this conference. I've come out of a career of professional broadcasting. I worked in radio for years in places like St. Louis, Philadelphia, Little Rock, Arkansas, and finally got my head on straight. Got out of mainstream media, went into a sales career for a while, wound up podcasting. We started podcasting, my wife Sharon and I, back in 2005. And that's how we actually started doing that to promote the novels that we were writing. And since we have, now we're 12 years down the road, we can look back and see that God actually had us do the podcast, not to market our novels, but he had us write the novels so we'd start the podcast. And that's how we began meeting people like Tom Horn, Steve Quayle, L.A. Marzulli, Russ Dizdar, and other people in this milieu, which is a name that's been applied to us lately. We're a milieu of fundamentalist bioconservatives.
That's interesting.
Transhumanists are really concerned that we're harshing their mellow.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I can mess that up a little bit.
But we, as time went on, began getting invited to prophecy conferences to do interviews and then asked to speak. And then that eventually led to an invitation by Tom Horn to partner with him, Sharon and I, in Skywatch TV. Last year, while trying to figure out what I was going to talk about at the prophecy conference last summer in Colorado Springs, not wanting to repeat the talks that I've been giving for 4 years on transhumanism and dominion theology, I was looking for something, and I noticed in Exodus 12, the story of the Red Sea crossing, God told Moses, turn around. Well, why would he do that? They were getting away. The Israelites were getting away. Why? Well, that started a bunch of research into what that was all about. The Red Sea crossing, to make a long story short, was not just a showy way, with great special effects, to get the Israelites out of Egypt. It was a confrontation between God and the Canaanite god Baal, who is a real entity who had convinced the Amorites, who were in control of northern Egypt when the Israelites were there. They weren't Egyptian, and their gods weren't Egyptian because history, So the Red Sea crossing was actually a smackdown. Yahweh, the Most High God, over Baal, who was the storm god, but also the god who was the master of the sea. Baal was the patron god of sailors in the ancient world for more than 1,500 years. Phoenician sailors who would, basically sailed all across the Mediterranean, sailed to Britain, sailed all around the coast of Africa. They would always pray to Baal because he was the one who mastered the sea. But Yahweh said, okay, watch this. Boom, Red Sea. Wall of water on the left, wall of water on the right. Well, these Baal worshippers must have thought, oh, wow, what a great trap. Baal's got him right where he wants him. To getting to the other side. Well, we better go chase. And then the waters collapsed, wiped out the Egyptian army. This was God not just delivering them from the hand of Pharaoh. This was God delivering the Israelites from the hand of Baal. This was a supernatural confrontation and a message from God to these rebellious small g gods that he was the true power in heaven, and that his people, now that they were free from Egypt, were coming to Canaan, which was Baal's territory, and God was going to take that for his own. There are stories like that all through the Bible, these confrontations between God and these rebellious fallen angels, if you prefer, but God in the Bible calls them gods. So I'm in pretty safe territory there. And the Bible is filled with stories like that, but we never hear about that in church.
No, and that's what's disheartening for me. There's so many mega churches, and it's not so much the size, but a lot of them, they won't even touch the subject of fallen angels, giants, Nephilim, or anything of that nature. And that's why I think your ministry and what we're doing here on YouTube and people like LA and Steve Quayle and others, I mean, it's something that needs to go out there, because we have Ancient Aliens,
right.
And there's this big move to what is it, panspermia.
Panspermia, right.
And so it's, we have to, and a lot of Christians think, well, there's no answer to that. So I think that many can be led astray to believe something like that, because in churches you are not taught, like what you're talking about. And in your book, The Great Inception, coming out in a couple weeks, right? Or about a week, you said?
Yeah.
And I'll leave information for you guys below. But that, where you're talking about ancient history, which also gets ignored. They only tell you the side of history that they want you to know about. And so you're taking these pieces from all over, and that's what I love. I mean, when you have history and you can grab it, and you can say, look, this story, even though it's a pagan story, look, it matches what the Bible is talking about, and the Bible is the root, but if we can take it to this story, look how many exist.
Right.
And what does that say, about God?
Exactly. A couple hundred years ago, scholars digging in the sands of Iraq and Syria began digging up these tablets and these inscriptions, and as they learned to translate these things, they came up with these stories that sounded a lot like what was in the Bible. The Babylonian flood account, the Babylonian creation epic, the Gilgamesh epic. Wow, this is just like the Bible. Well, these are older than the Bible text, so the Bible must have copied from these. No, it's the other way around. You're hearing two versions of the same story. It's like one version is the mainstream media story, the other is the Lisa Haven news story. The Bible account is the one that's correct. And what amazed me as I started digging into this, when I started reading more papers from academic scholars about ancient cosmology, what did the ancient Mesopotamians believe? What did the Assyrians believe? What did the Babylonians believe? Who were the Amorites? Why did God say that your descendants, Abraham, will return in the fourth generation because the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete? What does that mean? Who are the Amorites? What did they do that was so bad? Well, they founded Babylon, for one thing. That's pretty big. This stuff is known to scholars, but it never gets translated to the church because the scholars are thinking, oh, well, this is just cute. This is how the ancient world tried to make sense of a world they couldn't understand. Natural phenomena that was beyond their comprehension. They invented a storm god to explain the thunder and lightning and why they got rain sometimes and drought other times. No, God placed these small g gods over the nations after the Tower of Babel incident. You don't want to deal with me, world? Okay, you'll deal with my subordinates here. The 70 B'nai Elohim. 70 because 70 nations in Genesis 10, Table of Nations. You can look that up. But not coincidentally, the number 70 pops up in a lot of other places. The Canaanites believed that their chief god El lived on Mount Hermon, which is a holy mountain, one of several that I detail in The Great Inception and the importance of it in The Great Inception, because they try to take credit for things that God has done. That's why, after the Red Sea crossing, God tells Moses, after giving him the law and before giving him the instructions on how to build a tabernacle, Moses, you, Aaron, your 70 elders of Israel come up Mount Sinai and they have a meal with God. Now, are we ever told that at one point, at one specific point in history, other than the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve got kicked off the original holy mountain, Ezekiel 28, it's a holy mountain, a garden on a mountain, that humans can look at God and not die? No, we're told that, well, Moses had to hide in the cleft of the rock and God covered his face with his hand until he got past because he couldn't look him in the face, otherwise he would die. No, Exodus 24, the 70 elders of Israel with Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons went up the mountain. They ate a meal with God and they saw him face to face. Now, why did God do that? Why was it 70? Because the rebellious 70 small g gods that God placed over the nations had rebelled, and God was sending them a message. This is what's going to happen. Humans are coming back to the holy mountain. They're going to walk with me, eat with me, be part of the divine assembly again. We're coming for you. What did Jesus do after he went up on Mount Hermon for the transfiguration, which was like sending a flare into the spirit realm? Here I am, come get some. He comes down the mountain where El lived with his 70 sons, where the Watchers descended and began their plot to corrupt humanity through taking wives and creating the Nephilim. And he sends out 70 disciples to Galilee. This is my land. All you demons, get off my property. The number is not a coincidence. These are incidents, confrontations between God Most High and these small g gods who rebelled against his authority. And there are incidents all through the Bible that are like that. It's just amazing. I can't be the first one in 2,000 years who's thought of this. I just wonder why we haven't heard this in church before. I'm not that smart.
I know, right? Well, God uses us to, profound the waters, if you will.
Exactly, yes.
So definitely, and God's into numbers. We know there's meanings behind it all, and the Bible is a living book, and that's something you're well aware of, and many of your viewers out there. And now, would you say, if we fast forward to where we are today, because it's like our world is just flipped upside down, and I almost think it's we're in an unknown area. We have Donald Trump, we have this, we have things falling apart at the same aspect. But would you say, I guess, there's a rise of Baal, and who is that's rising?
I'd say that there are a number of gods that are rising. I'd say that all of the old gods never really went away. I would that after Jesus, they lost their authority over the nations, but they haven't gone away yet. Now there's a day coming when they're going to die, and that's in the Bible as well. Psalm 82, which is a picture of God passing judgment in the divine council. Psalm 82, in the midst of the divine council, God stands amidst the gods, and I'm paraphrasing it and mangling it, but essentially he tells these entities, because they have shown partiality to the wicked, there's a day coming when they will die like men and fall like any prince. And the psalm concludes with the psalmist writing, "Arise, O God, and judge the nations, for you shall inherit the earth." God is basically inheriting all the nations for his own. A day is coming when these gods are going to die. They know it. They know their time is short. They're under a death sentence, and so they're going to take as many humans with them as they can to the lake of fire. Now, can we identify with any certainty which spirits are behind what things on the planet? No, I don't think so, because we're limited to three-dimensional perception, 4 if you include time, and these things are moving in multiple dimensions. They're playing 11-dimensional chess while we're playing checkers. But I would suggest that since Jesus identified Baal as Satan twice in the Bible, once when he's accused of casting out demons by the spirit of Beelzebul, which means Baal the prince, Jesus responds that if Satan casts out demons by his own power, he knows a house divided cannot stand. But he also, in the book of Revelation, identifies the city of Pergamon as the location of Satan's seat. Well, that was the altar of Zeus, which is now in Berlin, by the way. It was taken there just before Hitler came to power. Zeus is Baal, different name for the same god, Baal, the storm god, Zeus, the storm god. So Satan, the storm god Baal, he's still walking amongst us. But I would say that Ishtar, Inanna, in the Sumerian, the goddess of sex and war, and by sex I don't mean husband and wife, I mean carnal, twisted, perverse, gender fluid, is the god of the age. I mean, that's the spirit of the age. I mean, you look at what's going on here in the United States. I mean, when there was an article from California just recently about a woman who wrote into a newspaper saying, look, I was in the bathroom at the health club with my daughter, and a guy walked in, wearing a Rams t-shirt or whatever, and he's just kind of standing there, and none of the women felt comfortable telling the guy to leave, even though, it's a dude with a beard, but maybe he identifies as a woman today. I mean, what has happened to the world?
I know.
But 5,000 years ago, this Sumerian goddess Inanna, there are Sumerian texts that have been translated about how she changes the gender on her followers, changes the right side male to the left side, changes the left side to the right side. She turns a man into a woman into a... Her followers were eunuchs and transvestites and cult prostitutes, same-sex cult prostitutes. This is not progressive, this gender fluid idea. This is regressive. This goes back to 1,000 years before Abraham, when Moses came along and God gave him the law around 1450 BC. That was progressive, because that said, no, here are the standards. In the beginning created he them male and female. That was new. And it's still 1,500 years newer than this whole idea that progressives are trying to sell us on now. So I'd say she's, and of course war is everywhere in the world right now. So I would say that Inanna, if anything, is the spirit of the age. But I would say, as I talked about in my presentation here, if anything, Islam represents the spiritual equivalent, supernatural equivalent of a spiritual corporate merger, where you've got a number of gods that were worshipped by the ancient Amorites and their descendants, the Canaanites, the Arameans, the Phoenicians, the Chaldeans, seem to have pooled their resources. And maybe that's why Islam, after 1,400 years, is still going strong. In fact, at the current rate of growth, Islam will become the largest religion on planet Earth within the next 50 years.
Outgrowing Christianity.
Outgrowing Christianity. There are 1.6 billion Muslims on planet Earth right now, and we Christians, especially in the West, aren't having as many children per capita as they are. So most other religions of the ancient world have fizzled, faded, and died, but Islam is going strong.
And what scares me is on Islam, if you look at their, we have the Bible, they have the Quran,
right.
And it's just, I've read parts in it to know what's in it and to talk about it. And so all they've really done is they flipped, our Antichrist and made them their savior. I did a whole thing on that where I tied them line by line, even with quotes from the Hadith.
Right.
But they literally turned the Antichrist into their savior.
Right.
And it's the scary thought. And when you think about their growing popularity and where they're at, I mean, despite all the stuff, the stoning and the, it's just crazy. Yeah. But it's really something that I think we should watch.
Well, and I think the thing, and this was a comment that came up in the closing Q&A session that you moderated, and it was Michael Boldea who made this comment, and it was very insightful that you've got in the United States now the radical feminist movement, the LGBT movement, and Islam working together. We saw this at the Women's March on Inauguration Day with Donald Trump. We had the women marching, and one of the coordinators of this is a Muslim
anger
woman.
March, I think is more
exactly.
of a word.
A Muslim woman, Linda Mansour, who, and I forget the name of her organization in New York, but she openly advocates Sharia law, which is anti-woman.
Yes.
How can she be a feminist Muslim? I mean, that's
it's contradictory.
What's the word? It's a no. Anyway, it doesn't make any sense. The only thing that they have in common, these radical progressives and Islam, the only thing they have in common is a hatred of Jesus Christ.
Yes. So it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Until finally one has to win the battle when they all go against each other.
Right.
And I there's at some point I'm sure some of those battles take place, but it's just a scary thought, but the Lord warned us about this in scriptures, so we're well aware. But I guess with that, are there any last thoughts that you want to share with anybody out there, and just kind of anything of that nature?
Well, just that, take comfort in the fact that God has shared with us enough to know that He saw this coming thousands of years ago, that these gods that have rebelled against Him, that are still real in this day and are still influencing our world today, are, as I said, under a death sentence. God knows their actions. He knows the end from the beginning and knows that their doom is sure. We may have a rough road between now and the end of this race, but I think the best words of encouragement I can share, I heard from Dr. Michael Lake. He said that for whatever reason, God has chosen us for the roles that we are in right now. Whatever those roles are. I mean, you doing what you do for your viewers on your YouTube channel. Me and Sharon doing what we do for Skywatch TV and for the people who read our books. Dr. Michael Lake and the messages that he preaches and the seminars that he teaches. Russ Disdar and his deliverance ministry. L.A. Marzulli pursuing the truth and the physical evidence of giants all over the planet. Michael Boldea and the work that he does. Josh Peck with his crazy mind that actually understands quantum physics and how to relate it to a Christian audience. For whatever reason, God doesn't need any of us to do what we do. And yet He has chosen us to do what we do in this day and in this hour as we get close to the end of history. Now, the apostles and the prophets longed to be a part of this fight. Think about that. 3,500 years ago, a guy named Moses was saying, "No, Lord, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to." Okay. But knowing once he knew what the end game was, he did it. Before Moses was Abraham, who was given a promise. Going all the way back to Enoch, who prophesied that there was a day coming when God would come with 10,000s of His holy ones to pass judgment on the evildoers in the earth. They knew that this day was coming, that these days that we're in were coming, and they longed to be a part of this final fight, the conclusion of this epic war that's been taking place since the beginning of history. And here we are, on the front lines of this battle, and this is what Michael said that I thought was so brilliant, are leaning over the rails of heaven and cheering us on. So take heart in that, because the days that you endure may be difficult. You may be struggling financially, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, but know that the prophets and the apostles suffered as greatly or more, and that right now they are cheering us on among that cloud of witnesses, cheering us on as we approach the finish line. So take heart, because as Paul writes, the sufferings that we endure in this day will be as nothing compared to the glory that is to come.
Well, amen to that. I second that wholeheartedly. Well, is there any way that people can reach out, like your YouTube channel or information on your book? Will you please share that?
Yeah, you can find out the book, well, 3 things. SkywatchTV.com, of course, for the daily news updates and the weekly programs there. My website, DerekPGilbert.com, DerekPGilbert.com. And my YouTube channel, youtube.com/DerekGilbert, where I post the podcast. And also have my novel in audio form. One of my novels, anyway. It's older. We'll put it out in print here soon. But anyway, The Great Inception is the name of the book, and there's a website devoted to that. And in fact, there's free samples of the book available at the website, thegreatinception.com. Look for a link that says The Long War Journal. There are about a dozen articles there right now pulled from the book, so it gives you a free taste of what the book is about.
Awesome. And for all you guys out there, I will leave all the links below and the information of everything he had, so make sure you check below in the YouTube links. Well, thanks again for tuning into my channel here on Lisa Haven, and well, I'm signing out with
Derek Gilbert.
Derek Gilbert.
Thank
See
you
you later.